You work yourself to the bone, watching your paycheck get sliced apart by Uncle Sam, all under the promise that your hard-earned money is going to something important, something noble. Doing your part, contributing your portion to help maintain the great US of A. Now imagine waking up to the news that over 100 billion of your tax dollars are just gone. Not miscalculated, not delayed, just poof, vanished into thin air. This isn't a hypothetical. This is what just happened with US aid to Ukraine. And the people responsible? They won't even give you a straight answer. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky himself admitted it. Out of the $177 billion the US has sent to Ukraine, his country has only actually received about $75 billion. That leaves more than $100 billion unaccounted for. And here's where things get really disturbing. Zelensky is afraid to even ask where the money went. Because, in his own words, talking about it too much could make future aid disappear. Think about that for a second. A sitting president, fighting a war, desperate for resources, openly admits that more than half the money his country was promised never arrived. But he won't press the issue, because doing so could make things worse. This is the most obvious admitting by omitting statement of there being rampant, huge corruption in our government. And yet, where's the outrage? Where are the investigations? Where are the consequences? Instead of accountability, we're given vague reassurances and patronizing soundbites, as if we're supposed to accept that this is just how things work. But this isn't just about Ukraine. This is part of a much bigger pattern. Let's take a step back and look at how this all started. When Russia invaded Ukraine in early 2022, the US government quickly positioned itself as Ukraine's biggest financial backer. The justification? To help Ukraine defend itself against Russian aggression, to protect democracy, to preserve stability in Eastern Europe. That was the official line. But from the beginning, the numbers never made sense. The US Congress approved multiple aid packages for Ukraine, adding up to an eye-watering $177 billion. A number so large most people can't even process it. And just recently, before leaving office, President Biden approved another $500 million in aid, further inflating the total. And for what? Because according to Zelensky, his country never even saw the majority of that money. Instead, it went somewhere else. So, where did it actually go? One theory is that it never left the United States. A huge portion of the aid was funneled into contracts with defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing. These companies raked in billions, selling weapons that Ukraine may never have even received. Think about that. Your tax dollars, supposedly going to help a war-torn country, actually pumped straight back into the pockets of the military-industrial complex. Another theory? The money did reach Ukraine, but not the people who needed it. Ukraine has a long history of corruption, and reports have surfaced of officials, oligarchs, and generals buying luxury properties in Europe. Lavish estates, offshore accounts, and suspiciously high salaries for government figures in a war zone. Even Zelensky himself, the once humble comedian turned wartime leader, has seen an interesting upgrade in his lifestyle. There are reports of properties, investments, and quiet backroom dealings that simply don't add up with his official earnings. The Pentagon has failed every single audit it has ever undergone. In its most recent attempt, it couldn't account for a staggering $824 billion. Before that, $2.3 trillion went missing the day before that memorable day in September of 2001. That's not speculation. That's fact. The very office investigating it was conveniently destroyed when Building 7 collapsed, and all records of the missing funds were gone. No investigation, no explanation, just another oops. And then there's the World Bank. Between 2017 and 2023, up to $41 billion in climate finance mysteriously vanished. No records, no accountability, no answers, just more empty promises from powerful people who expect you to trust them. It's not just governments. The IMF, the UN, countless relief funds, all of them have long histories of cash disappearing into dark corners. Think of all the massive disaster relief funds over the years: Haiti's earthquake, Afghanistan's reconstruction, pandemic relief packages. Billions upon billions of dollars, and yet the people who were supposed to be helped? They're still suffering. The pattern is clear. Money goes in, and then, like magic, it's gone. And now, here we are, yet again, watching history repeat itself in real time. Over $100 billion in aid, unaccounted for. Money that was meant to support Ukraine's war effort. Money that was supposed to buy weapons, humanitarian aid, and military supplies. But instead, it's gone. And nobody, not Zelensky, not Biden, not the Pentagon, seems interested in explaining why. So, where did it actually go? One theory is that it never left the United States. A huge portion of the aid was funneled into contracts with defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing. These companies raked in billions, selling weapons that Ukraine may never have even received. Think about that. Your tax dollars, supposedly going to help a war-torn country, actually pumped straight back into the pockets of the military-industrial complex. Another theory? The money did reach Ukraine, but not the people who needed it. Ukraine has a long history of corruption, and reports have surfaced of officials, oligarchs, and generals buying luxury properties in Europe. Lavish estates, offshore accounts, and suspiciously high salaries for government figures in a war zone. Even Zelensky himself, the once humble comedian turned wartime leader, has seen an interesting upgrade in his lifestyle. There are reports of properties, investments, and quiet backroom dealings that simply don't add up with his official earnings. And the darkest theory of all? The money didn't go to Ukraine or defense contractors. It was swallowed by intelligence operations, black budgets, and covert government programs. The CIA has a long history of using conflicts like this as a cover for moving massive amounts of untraceable cash. It's the perfect setup: a never-ending war, a public that doesn't ask questions, and politicians who tell you to trust the process. But let's not forget the other players in this grand scheme. There's more than just governments involved. Banks, investment firms, international arms dealers, they all have a stake in this game. Money moves through a complex network of shadow banking, offshore accounts, and under-the-table agreements that ensure no one can ever truly trace where it all ends up. The people moving these funds aren't amateurs. They are professionals at making money disappear. And that's where things start to look even darker. Because if this kind of financial black hole exists on a global scale, what does that mean for the average taxpayer? The person working 40, 50, 60 hours a week just to scrape by, while billions of dollars simply evaporate into the ether. What happens when there's another crisis, another war, another emergency that demands more taxpayer money? Will anyone stop to ask where the last pile of cash went? Or will it just happen again, and again, and again? This is not a fluke. This is a pattern. Governments, financial institutions, intelligence agencies, they all operate with impunity, knowing that the average person will be too overwhelmed with their own struggles to demand answers. They count on our apathy. They count on our distractions. And they count on our trust. But at what point does trust become blind faith? At what point do we say, enough is enough? Over $100 billion in U.S. taxpayer money is missing. Zelensky himself doesn't know where it went. The U.S. government lacks proper oversight. The same contractors who profit off war are getting richer by the day. And the people in charge of it all? They expect you to just forget about it. How much more of your money has to disappear before people start paying attention? This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's happening right in front of us. And if they can make $100 billion vanish without consequence, what does that mean for the future? Who's really getting rich off this? Who's covering it up? And how much longer will this keep happening before people start demanding real answers? Share this with someone who needs to wake up. Because this isn't just about Ukraine. It's about all of us.